What's happening, folks? Back with another reaction, back for the first time in several months with a tune from the one and only, the legendary Jon Mark, one of the most incredible ambient artists I've ever encountered. As I've explained a number of times, it's not quite the Sybient of the late 2000s and the 2010s that constitutes the majority of the tracks in my ambient excursion mixes. It is an older style of ambient, very keyboard and pad and, for the most part, not really percussive type of ambient, but it's some of the most beautiful music I've ever heard in my life. And in that regard, we finished Land of Merlin last time, so we're going to jump to his 1996 album, Asia Journey. Now, the front cover is already up on my music wall, not where you can see it, it's over off camera. But yes, this is from 1996, so jumping ahead a few years in time relative to Land of Merlin. And it begins with Asia Dawn. So yes, I mean, people who know me, people who know my Patreon will be aware that I watch a lot of Japanese live action shows, a lot of anime, and I listen to a fair amount of Japanese music, also a little bit of Korean music, not nearly as much. But the point is, like, Asian music in general is something I'm at least moderately familiar with, and in particular, Asian score music. People will know here on YouTube I have a J-drama score / soundtrack playlist, and that's also some of my very favorite music. Now, this isn't going to quite be that, but the idea of having motifs and stylings that are specific to or built around Asian musical traditions will be very interesting for me to hear. Now, when I first got this album, I ripped it, and I remember looking, there's something weird at the very end of the album. Like, it shows the last two tracks, one being like 6 minutes, one being 5 minutes, and then in the track list after I ripped it, the second to last tune is like 10 minutes long, and then the last track is like 45 seconds or something. So what seems like happened is, like, the CD didn't get cut the right way, so when we get to the end of this, I'm just going to play the last two tracks together, because then we'll hear it as it was originally meant to be heard, but without, dealing with one of the cuts on the CD being like all of one track and like 90% of the last tune, but then the last minute or so of the last track being like cut into a different track number on the CD. So yeah, we'll deal with that when we come to it. But Asia Dawn, so it suggests a sunrise, it suggests maybe mist over a water or over a rice paddy or a tiered agricultural, like, farming community in an Asian country. So that's kind of the image that I have in my head. Once again, I have heard this a long time ago, but not anytime recently, so it'll be very fresh to me. Let's give it a listen. This is Jon Mark, his Asia Journey CD, and the first track is called Asia Dawn. Oops. Sorry. Okay. like he came back for that one extended chord. But yes, it's beautiful. It's very much in his style, which is further to say, like, even as his albums have different themes, there are stylings and chord progressions that feel very much of his work. So you would, I think, be entirely on point or justified if after 30, 45 seconds here, even if you didn't know what you were listening to, if you were like, this sounds like Jon Mark. I feel like that's a testament to his unique style of ambient. And again, ambient with no beat, it's like you have to understand melody. Not that you don't need to understand melody if you're making Sybient or any track with, like, driving percussion, but also melodic elements. But when it's ambient, it's kind of like an a cappella singer. It's like, your voice, if you're with loud guitars and big drums and so on, people will still be able to tell if you have really good vocal and like tonal qualities versus if you're just up there shouting. And to be clear, there's nothing wrong with shout singing. As someone who likes punk rock, and big shout out to my man Dick Lucas, who does a lot of shout singing, lead singer of the Subhumans. But again, if you do a cappella, you're out there, and you're in a big spotlight with no other sounds around you. And I feel like Jon Mark's melodies are the equivalent of that, because there aren't drums or driving percussion. It's really this very melody-based, deep sonic atmosphere type of ambience. So yeah, again, it wasn't like super strong Asian flavored in terms of having like a lot of traditional Asian instruments or something, but given the setting and given the track title, I'm very much seeing, like a Asian style boat from, like the 17th or 18th century on a like misty body of water, and I'm seeing like overhead shots of like rural Asian landscapes as I'm listening to this. So very much looking forward to the rest of the album. Again, haven't heard it in a long time, and can't really think of any of the other tracks. Some of them are very specific. There's one called Bangkok, so like there will be tracks that are maybe even more narrowly themed, and I do wonder as I look at these, what specific elements those might have. So yes, we're looking forward to all of it. In fact, the next track in the playlist when we come back next time is Storm Over Bali. So again, a very geographically specific tune. Anyway, let me know what you think, and I'm looking forward to getting back to Mr. Jon Mark. And indeed, Kim, if you're still out there, I know like you've been busy, but I know you're a big fan of Jon Mark's music, so I hope to see you there in the comments at some point. Let me know what you think, and I will see you next time. Peace.